Hey everybody, welcome back to Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast. I hope you're all keeping safe and well in these crazy times that we find ourselves still in. I hope you're managing to enjoy a little bit of the sunshine at least. We're certainly having here in the UK, not sure about the rest of the world. This week, I'm delighted to have Gustavo Ramos with me from a company called CoBlue, and CoBlue are actually a piece of OKR software based out of Brazil. Gustavo, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Lars, it's a pleasure.
It's really nice to have you guys on the podcast. So we're going to be talking a little bit about communication when it comes to OKRs and motivation within the organization and things like that. But Gustavo, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Okay, so I first started working with OKRs in 2017. At that time, I joined CoBlue as an inside salesperson. So I had this mission to sell our OKR platform and also professional services to help implement the methodology. Cool. Ended up as a customer success manager. So I had this job of implementing OKRs through trainings, and I ended up training dozens of OKR ambassadors and several customers.
Right.
I've actually became CoBlue's own OKR ambassador for our company OKRs, and then later, it's been a few years. I've implemented OKRs in over 50 companies. I'm actually the chief revenue officer at CoBlue right now.
Right.
And yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, so you've done a few different things. Then you started off in sales, but you moved into account management, and you own OKR master for CoBlue. So you're doing training within your clients as well as the chief revenue officer role as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing both right now, but I'm trying to stay more in a more strategic role inside the company and start to train more other customer success managers so they can implement in those customers. But yeah, I still have a few ones that I'm definitely in touch with. And as I have the whole vision of our customer success area, I'm pretty close to all the customers and their numbers and how their OKR programs are actually working.
Right.
So it gives me a very wide vision because we have customers from so many different areas, and some work with maybe professional services, some are at tech companies.
Right.
At everything you can imagine.
Okay, so had you heard of OKRs before you started working for CoBlue?
Actually not. It was definitely not in touch with management models. I've heard of them for college, definitely, but I wasn't. That's not really what I was working with. I really just got to meet OKRs when I joined CoBlue.
Okay, so you've gone from OKR novice to OKR master in a few short years, then.
Yeah, I definitely did. I had a lot of help. My business partners at CoBlue, they are so used to business models. They've been working with it for over 10 or maybe even nearly 20 years.
Sure.
And they're also very passionate about it, just like me. So I've had this opportunity of going to maybe bigger companies that I would have normally access to, and see how their OKR programs are doing. And that was very, very fortunate to me because I could take a shorter path to learning about the methodology and how it works.
Yeah, so a much more efficient path. That's really cool. So are a lot of companies in Brazil using OKRs now then? Are they gaining popularity?
I think it's still a small thing. It's definitely growing. I can't say that, but most companies here are very used to models like balanced scorecard.
Right.
And also there's a model here called management by guidelines, which is very popular here, but I wouldn't say it's so different from the principles of a traditional balanced scorecard model.
Okay.
Maybe a variation or something.
So slightly more old school techniques, still very popular out in Brazil then?
Yeah, they are very popular. Some principles for OKRs, like transparency, for instance, are very hard to implement here. When you go into, especially into bigger companies, you're going to find some company cultures which are used to a very command and control type of culture, where you kind of just you build those goals and then you just send them down. You don't really have people participating. in actually building it, and that's what makes so that communication is a lot worse, which is one of the topics we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So there must be some real challenges you have then in terms of actually implementing OKRs with your clients. Are people quite willing to embrace it? Presumably most people reach out to you first rather than you trying to educate them in what OKRs are.
Yeah, they usually people come to us, they read a little bit of our content, so they kind of like know what they're going for. And as we talk to them, we try to understand like how many resources they have going for them, because sometimes there's like one vice president or just one director that's really into OKRs, but then when you actually get to the inside the room with all the others, you realize that guy was the only one that's actually willing to make the whole change.
So what do you do in that instance then? Do OKRs typically not work for those companies, or is it just a longer battle?
It is definitely a longer battle. We definitely have to go through a change management model, where we need to fully analyze that company's culture, understand how their balanced scorecard model works, and try to show actually just the things that some principles that guided the way balanced scorecard works in Brazil, they just don't work anymore. So like I said, like one of them is that transparency is more of a risk than it is a benefit. That's actually that's not something that's loudly said, but people feel like it. They feel like if they give a higher level of transparency, instead of seeing it as a big benefit, they actually see it as a risk. And some other principles that work around OKRs, you need to really try to go through all of them and show. For instance, there's another one that here it's still very common for people to plan multiple years ahead.
Right. Okay.
And so why do they do that? Because they have this idea, this underlying idea, I guess, that you can definitely plan for multiple years ahead because you can foresee what's going to happen, and you're in a very static kind of environment that not much is going to change. So, and what they fail to see is that the environment is definitely dynamic, and you would need a dynamic model a dynamic approach for your company in order to fully take opportunity of this dynamic scenario that we're in right now.
That's really interesting. Because the whole point of OKRs really is to be able to make you agile enough to keep on responding to an ever-changing world. And of course, you need those big, high-level goals to align into. But I don't think you can quite plan out the next few years and still make OKRs work. Have you faced any other conflicts then whilst implementing OKRs with some of your clients?
Usually, our main conflicts are around like those things like transparency and showing the importance of having more people collaborating in the goal setting process. So it's very common here that only the top level management participates in goal setting.
Right.
And because they, at first glance, they don't see quite the value of having more people participating in the process and giving their insights, as if mostly top level management has all the insights they need to build that from top down. So I'd say that's definitely one of the challenges, showing the value that people on other parts of the company have, and that they have valuable insights because they're the people who are in the front lines talking to the customer every day, and they're in sales or marketing, doing those operations. So they definitely have a few insights that maybe someone who's in a very different company management level, they won't be able to see. It's not a matter of being like better or worse. It's just different views that could sum up to a more complete view of the organization. So that's definitely a challenge, showing value in this whole process.
Like you said earlier, it's very much still a command and control sort of mindset out there then.
It is. It definitely is.
What about dealing with business as usual areas that might be resistant to the model of OKRs then. Have you come across that as a conflict at all?
Yeah, we definitely did. I think that's very common from everyone I've talked to about OKRs with, dealing with business as usual areas. Usually what they do is that they're very used to KPIs. So
Right.
at first they think the moment they implement OKRs, they're going to lose all the other KPIs. And what we have usually tell them is that that's not what's going to happen. Like, you can have OKRs and KPIs. You can have a whole lot of KPIs in the dashboard maybe, but then you're just gonna feel like pick a few ones that you actually want to work with, and that you're gonna work in a quarter-based system, and definitely focus on those ones.
Yes.
Just try to show them that they cannot make every single number in the company better in a single quarter. So they need to let some KPIs in standby mode, and then focus on those OKRs. And then when they can see this thing, like with both OKRs and KPIs working simultaneously, but having your OKRs your main focus of change and KPIs more like company health, I feel like they feel more secure to start working with OKRs.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way of putting it. There's certainly resistance that we've seen as well, and I think there's a bit of a myth out there that OKRs are a replacement for KPIs, which of course is just not the case at all.
I see that a lot. People are usually they think like, if you implement OKRs, you're gonna lose KPIs for sure, and that's not the case. They can complement each other and make your management model more complete.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
Koan is a purpose-built solution for managing your OKRs, helping your teams achieve their objectives, getting them aligned, and absolutely helping them stay engaged. Sharing spreadsheets simply doesn't scale when you're trying to grow a business. With Koan, you can scale OKRs across your entire company whilst keeping the teams motivated and moving in the right direction. Now, Lawrence, there's lots of things we love about Koan, but tell me one of yours.
So I've got to say, one of my favourite things is that Koan just allows you to have a bit of fun with the OKR process.
Yeah.
In series 2, I think it was episode 3 of this podcast, we actually spent about half an hour, 40 minutes talking about the importance of making OKRs fun for your team.
Yeah.
And Koan allows you to do that perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, even just things like adding a GIF to your reflections adds some real personality. And I think I probably waste far too much time each week looking for the perfect GIF, to be honest. But it allows that fun throughout the organisation, and that's something that's really important if you're going to keep people engaged.
You are known for having the best GIFs.
Thank you very much.
In the team, definitely. So if you would like to find out more about how to make OKRs fun, whilst using a great system, then pop along to Koan, that's KOAN.co/giants, where you'll find also a great paper that we co-wrote with them on how to build accountability and collaboration using OKRs.
Okay, cool. So we've talked about kind of the challenges you guys have faced whilst trying to implement OKRs with other businesses then. It sounds to me like the companies where you're really driving success, they're starting to use OKRs for alignment and maybe setting priorities. Is that right?
It definitely is. As we come from a very structured balanced scorecard model where you always have 4 main objectives, which are those 4 perspectives from the balanced scorecard model that people may remember.
Yeah.
There's this myth that you can focus on multiple things at once every single quarter. So usually what we try to do is, okay, you cannot do everything in a single quarter, so we need to set some priorities. And OKR is a very good way to do that and to communicate that across company.
Yeah.
And alignment is definitely an issue that companies are trying to solve, and one of the main reasons they're implementing OKRs for. Because when you come with those older models where people, especially in the bottom of the company, they just wouldn't participate. They are certainly things that they do on a daily basis are not connected to the company strategy.
Right.
because they just don't know the company strategy at all. They never had access to that information. It's when you go into big companies here, it's a real, I think it's a taboo to have people knowing, let's say, other teams' goals. So you only know goals in a very vertical way, but you can't really see them. That's a very common thing people would request in our software for the last few years. Like, can we make it so you cannot see other teams? Because that would maybe expose them or something. And then we just try to argument and understand why they think like this. But yeah, what we usually say is, okay, you can work in a very vertical way, but what's going to happen most likely, and it almost always happens, is that those people are going to lose sight from what other areas in the company are doing, and they're not going to be able to work together. They're going to work as silos.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, when you come from a culture like this, where you can't see the company strategy, you kind of like can't see other teams, so you're very restricted to seeing your own team and maybe just only maybe your manager and a few coworkers. There's definitely a lack of alignment because there's just not enough transparency to provide alignment.
And I can imagine then in that sort of culture where there's no visibility of the company's strategy or what other teams are doing, people are basically just working in order to get their bonus at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, and people are just working for themselves rather than the bigger picture.
It is definitely a bonus-oriented culture. Just wanted to make a small disclaimer from everything I've been saying. We definitely have a strong startup scene in Brazil.
Yes.
And we have those companies definitely pushing OKRs forward.
Yeah.
And they have a very different mindset from everything I've been saying up to now.
Sure,
I'm mainly referring to the bigger, more established companies that we have in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about one of those then. Let's talk about you guys at CoBlue. I mean, I would probably put yourselves in that category of one of the young, exciting startups coming out. I understand you're using OKRs to drive communication. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so basically, what we think is that communication is one of the key factors that make companies efficient, and that's going to help them execute their strategy properly. Because what happens most of the times is, as communication is not a very established thing, people are not. They don't have a clear vision of the company strategy. So what we try to do here to drive communication is there are a few practices, I'd say. But first one is trying to make sure that in our check-in meetings, we have everyone that needs to be involved, like as many people that need to be involved as possible. So let's say like here we have our marketing, sales, and customer success areas. They're very integrated. And one of the ways that we got to this point where those areas, they feel very close to each other is by having check-in meetings with everyone. Of course, as your company becomes bigger, it's harder to have every single person, but at least some people representing all of those teams. And what we used to do before when we started working with OKRs is that we would have separate check-in meetings for every team. And then we would use, of course, like our platform to make sure everyone was aligned. Yeah. But we've seen very big gains from just having those teams together, mapping those interdependencies among teams and making sure that those teams we've already mapped as interdependent, that they have their check-in meetings together and every other OKR routine, like OKR reviews, and scores in the end, making sure that those routines, they happen together and that those people are talking and that they have we have a very open environment, so that if you're maybe from a marketing team and you see a possibility to improve a customer success OKR, you can definitely tell them during the meeting or after the meeting. But we have that as a very, people feel really free to do that on a weekly basis.
Well, that's really cool. So tell us about feed forwards then as well, because I know that's something that you guys use at CoBlue, which might be a new term for most of us listening.
So we understand there are two concepts, which are feedbacks and feed forwards. They're both very important, and they have each of them have a place in company management. So let's say feedbacks. It's usually we're talking about something that's already happened. It's kind of like what the name says, So you're talking about some behaviors or maybe some achievements or projects or OKRs that person has already done, and you're looking into it. And then when you go for feed forwards, you try to understand the scenario you're in and the whole environment, and then give them advice of what they should do next. So it's a lot more focused on future. And what we usually do is that we have our check-in meetings, and then right after that, we usually have enough information to know who are the people that we need to talk to and give proper feed forwards to. So it's very clear for them that what their manager thinks of them, what they think about the OKR progress from this moment, and they receive kind of like advices or tips of how they could improve that performance. Maybe that there's someone in the company they should talk to, or there's some place they should read a certain content that's going to help them achieve their result. So it's usually a lot about giving advice. It's a thing that the manager should definitely do, but a lot more focused on the future, and a lot more related to the OKRs themselves. So usually when we do those feed forwards, they're very related to the OKRs.
I've got to say, I think this is a fantastic concept, and it's the first time I've come across it used in this context. But actually, I think those sort of looking, as much as you can look forward as possible and start to identify what the blockers are going to be, just the more chance of success you're going to have when you come to implement these things later down the line. You really are setting yourself up in the best possible way. So I've got to say, I think for the listeners out there listening to this podcast now, I would really recommend starting to use this concept. And even if you've not started with OKRs yet, think about the OKR process even. What is it that's going to derail OKRs as a process for you as a company over the next 3, 6, 12 months if you go ahead with it? And once you've identified those things, you can do something about it rather than having to be reactive at the time as they're happening, or worst case scenario, have the whole OKR project fail for you as a business, which would be killer. So I love that, Gustavo. Feed forwards. That's definitely a learning point for this podcast.
Yeah, I think like we do have feed forwards and feedbacks. So what we usually do is that after every check-in meeting, which is something we do weekly, we have those feed forwards. But then like monthly, we have those one-on-one talks with every person. They're a little bit more feedback oriented. So it's like every week we're gonna help you make sure that you have a better performance next week, and then at the end of a quarter we can talk about what happened. So you have those two. They don't happen at the same time, but I think they're both necessary. And if possible, you should have both. And even if you still don't have an OKR program working right now, you can definitely do it related to maybe your Scrum. Let's say you have that planning the start of the week for what you're going to develop in your product, and then after the meeting, you could definitely reach out to some people who are having bigger difficulties and give them some feed forwards.
Absolutely.
By the end of a quarter, I think when you have feed forwards, feedbacks, and OKRs, all three things working in the same company, it's definitely going to be going. It's going to be a lot better because they're going to complement each other. You're going to have OKRs as a central theme in your feed forwards. So you make sure that you're actually giving feed forwards about things that matter to the company, about those priorities.
Yeah. Of course. No, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think if you've got all three of those working harmoniously, you're gonna have a pretty powerful machine on your hands, actually, which is excellent. Brilliant. Right. Well, it's been a really great conversation, and definitely some learning points for our listeners. But finally, Gustavo, what is one piece of advice that you would give to a company that was either about to kick off their OKR journey, or perhaps are in the early stages of doing so, the first two or three cycles?
There's one thing that we talk a lot about here in CoBlue. People who work with inbound marketing, they know that marketing funnel. I guess that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Which goes through those early stages where people are still trying to understand what their problem is, and then they're reading about possible solutions, and then they're actually looking for a solution. So try to apply that when explaining about OKRs to people. When you try to sell someone a solution for a problem they don't acknowledge that they have, there may be a lot of resistance. So try to think about the marketing funnel of inbound marketing when you're trying to convince other people in the company to implement OKRs. Go for the first start. Make sure that they all acknowledge that those problems exist. That transparency is a thing that could have better. That you could be more agile and respond to crisis, just like the ones we're having right now. And as long as they understand those problems and it's very clear for everyone, when you start talking to them and trying to convince them that OKR is one of those possible solutions, you're going to see that's going to be a lot easier. So take it slow, make sure that they get those points first, and then you're going to have a very much easier experience when you're trying to implement it.
I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, because, people like me and yourself, Gustavo, but also the guys that are listening to this podcast, I think we're very good at getting really excited about OKRs, realizing how awesome they are, building up our knowledge, building up our expertise, and then being confident enough to give it a go. But being so excited about the fact that we're going to give it a go, that we forget that everybody else doesn't have the same level of knowledge that we've just spent hundreds of hours acquiring. And they're actually, back at point zero where they may have never even heard of OKRs. So I do think, as much as I don't want to kill anyone's enthusiasm, that is fantastic advice, that there is, a funnel that you have of education that you have to go through to build up the motivation in others as well whilst you're getting going.
Yeah, I say that because we've seen it multiple times, some very passionate people trying to implement OKRs in their company. Sometimes it's the CEO, which makes it a little easier, but sometimes it's someone else. It's one of the managers that's very passionate about it. He read multiple hours about it, a lot of content. He's read books, and then he goes all excited, and then we start telling people about it. They get a little resistant, like, okay, are we going to change everything? We're going to change our management model. Those are very important things in the company. Are you sure? And then they may scare people instead of excite them.
Yes. No, I completely agree. Gustavo, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
No problem at all. It's been a really great conversation. Really interesting to hear from somebody else that's implemented them within other companies in a completely different culture to the culture that I'm used to working in, and I'm sure some of our other listeners are used to. Guys listening, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Once again, if you enjoy the podcast, please go to whatever platform you listen to it on and leave us a review. That would be fantastic. We'd really, really appreciate that. And until next time, stay home, stay safe, look after each other. And I'm sure we'll be back to rocking and rolling soon. But if there's anything else you'd like to hear, just use the hashtag Giant Talk as always, and we'll speak to you again soon. Cheers. Bye.